Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
If you are unsatisfied with how your life has turned out, guess what? You are not alone. But our Bloom Health Club guest today says it's not too late to create the life you want and deserve. All you have to do is be a rebel. TEDx speaker and the author of How to Get Paid for What You Know and his latest book, Rebel, Graham Cochrane, joins us now. Graham, it is so great to see you.
And it's awesome to see you, as always.
So talk to me about your book, Rebel. What made you decide to write it?
Yeah, this was sort of an unexpected book. I had just published my first book, helping people monetize their knowledge, create side hustles, start something new work-wise. And then this idea came up of, well, how come you don't do what people tell you to do? I was in a coaching session with John Gordon, who's a legendary author, speaker, and he was hearing my life story. He said, you're a rebel, bro. You don't do what people tell you to do. Like, you've always kind of gone this one way. You zig when other people zag. And I never really thought of it that way, but we sort of unpacked maybe this idea of following your own path, not following the crowd, is what's allowed me to embrace the best parts of me and allowed me to have success, because I spent years trying to do what everyone told me to do, whether it was career advice, personal advice, and I always felt like a square peg in a round hole. And it wasn't until I embraced some of my uniquenesses and my ways of thinking that I cracked the code on my career success, or the way we do family, the way we do life. And so he's like, you got to write a book about this. I was like, I think you're right. So John Gordon was the one that pushed me to do this.
I think that's incredible. And I think, too, that all of us, whether we're young and starting out at life, or maybe later in life, we get stuck in a rut, like you say, of doing what we think we should be doing or what we were told to do. But if you live your life like a rebel in a good way, then you're living your life authentically. And that's what's really so important to get the fulfillment and the balance that you need.
Yeah, 100%, because the frustrations that we feel in life largely come from us living out of alignment with the way that we're wired. So it's a huge misalignment piece. So you're wired differently than me. I'm wired differently than you. And so if I look at your life and say, well, Gail seems happy, she seems successful, I'll just do what she's doing. That's a great start, but it's not going to lead you ultimately where you're supposed to be, because you're wired a little bit differently. So copying other people, or what we do actually by default, is nothing. When you do nothing, you drift with everybody else. You kind of conform, and you don't even realize it, the way you do life, the way you think about money, raising your kids. So to be a rebel is just to say, wait a second, do I like the way culture is going at large? Do I like the way my friend group, my little microculture is going? Should I just step out of the river for a moment, take a look at life and say, hey, what do I want out of a life in the 6, 7 core areas of life? And then make a plan to get there. And it really starts with that.
I want to bring in Bloom Tampa Bay digital reporter and our producer for our online segments, Brody Waddell. Brody, do you think that you're a rebel?
I'd like to think that I'm a rebel. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, especially, and that's something I think about a lot, especially when it comes to, and I don't know who will get upset by me saying this, but they preach you go to college, sort of things like that. And now it's unbelievable how many people are finding success and not going to college or not doing what they kind of told you what to do.
Dude, that was my story. I remember being pulled into my guidance counselor's office at age 17. So I was coming into my senior year, I think, of high school. I'd never been to my guidance counselor. I didn't know what they did.
Right.
But she seemed really nice, and they had a cozy couch, and I sat down, and she said, Graham, I'm glad you're here today. I brought you in because I want to check on you and your college application process. You're the only kid in your grade that hasn't applied to school. Now, for context, it's a college preparatory school. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, well, the reason I haven't applied for college is because I'm just going to be a rock star. And you don't need a degree. You just go pursue your dream.
Star,
yeah,
yeah.
you don't why wait 4 years. And like her smile faded, and she like got really serious. And like I don't remember much of the conversation, but I remember like what she said. She looked at me and she said, Graham, I don't know if you realize this, but we are a college preparatory school. We have a 100% college acceptance rate. She said, I don't care what you do with your life, but you will apply to and go to at least, we can be accepted by at least one college or university. And that's like the moment at like 17, I realized, oh, like I thought adults were for me, but I realized that adults have their own agenda. People have their own agenda. And her job was to keep that 100% college acceptance rate. She didn't really care about my bent or my dreams. And so it was like my first taste of, oh, there is a path that we're supposed to go down. And every culture has that path. Maybe it's not college. Maybe it's to do the family business or do exactly what your mom and dad did. But whatever that was, I realized I was a little bit different, and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Even though, ironically, I ended up going to college because my parents agreed with her 100%.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we save money, you're gonna go. So I kind of had to like get an audio degree and play in recording studios while I pursued my dream.
And you did pursue your dream,
Mm-hmm.
and you lived your dream for a while until, was it the pandemic hitting, or was it, I should recall this, but we had a long holiday stretch between when you and I talked
Yeah,
and,
it's okay.
and now this podcast. Was it the housing crisis or the pandemic that drove you into something different?
Yeah, it was the Great Recession, so 08, 09.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
so yeah, I kind of had like my shot at getting a record deal, and I was working at getting this album like shopped around to labels, and I was getting no after no after no. The only real yeses I were getting were development deals, which means we're not going to pay you. We like you, but we're not going to pay you yet.
Right.
And I was getting married to Shay at the time. I was engaged, and we're like young, and I was like, this needs to be my job. I need some advance money. So I kind of realized that the money was drying up. So that's what led me back to conforming again. And well, maybe my guidance counselor was right. Maybe I was stupid to pursue my dream. So I shuffled around for a few years with jobs, and then ultimately it was the Great Recession, the housing crisis. I lost 2 jobs in 10 months. We were on food stamps for 18 months. We just moved to Tampa. I just had our first daughter, Chloe. Just bought our first house. It was like really bad timing to like lose 2 jobs during a recession. So if you've ever felt that, I mean, I felt that.
Yeah.
And that's the catalyst that kind of drove me back to saying, well, wait a second. I'm 26. Maybe my dream died, but maybe there's more to my dream than just the path of being a rock star. Like, what else about music and performance? What is it that I love? And I had to do some deep work. Oh, I like creativity. I don't like to sit at a desk. I like different things. I like to interact with people. I like to be on the stage. And so that led me to building ultimately a content business, a YouTube channel, a coaching business, teaching and traveling and doing cool stuff that I never knew existed because YouTube didn't exist when I was a kid. So you just never know where your passions and your desires and your unique wiring can be reapplied in maybe a new version of your dream.
Which helped you write your book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, which is a great book. And it talks about how you don't really need to dedicate a ton of time to pivoting and starting something new. You almost give like a blueprint for people to follow to kind of put themselves out there, which I think is so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in the greatest time in the world because people think side hustles, they think, I don't know what you think when you think of a side hustle, but it might be like an Amazon store. It might be a little freelance business. There's a lot of ways to make extra money. But what I'm really talking about is how in your spare time, you can start to build an online sort of automated content brand around just you, around what you're into, whether it's a weird type of music, or you're really good at helping people lose weight, or you know how to speak French, or you know how to teach piano. Like all of these are legitimate business models, are all clients of mine. I have a client who helps people fix their motorcycles, DIY their motorcycle. Whatever you know, you can turn it into a content brand, and through automation and AI and just the power of content out there forever, like on YouTube, people all over the world can find your stuff at any moment and then go down a breadcrumb trail to ultimately buy a digital product or community from you. And it's way easier than it sounds. I'm not a techie person. I'm not even a businessy person. I wasn't, at least when I started. I'm an artist. And so I just wanted to create, but I learned how powerful these tools are, and they make business super accessible today. So it's a really easy time, way easier to get started. And in, I say 30 minutes a day, if you have 30 minutes a day, you can start to build this income stream that can ultimately become from a side hustle to a 6-figure or more income stream.
You know, I look at you and what you're doing, and the speaking, writing books, helping people, growing your own business to incredible proportions, working alongside your beautiful wife to start Tampa's very first wellness Airbnb. You know, people look at you and you make it look so easy. Are there hurdles? Are there things that we should think about that might hold us back besides our own mindsets?
I mean, you nailed it. Mindset's the biggest one. I struggle with imposter syndrome, which is a real term in psychology. And it's over 72%, I believe, is the latest study of professional adults, including doctors and lawyers, struggle with this sense of I'm an imposter. Who am I to do what I'm doing? I have felt that my entire career.
Me too.
I've been doing this 15 plus years. I still feel like, who am I to write a book teaching people how to get paid for what they know, or to have this YouTube channel, or to speak on the stage? Like, I just see myself as me. I'm just a normal person. So that's usually what will get in your way, is like, I'll get started when I feel more like an expert or more credible, or fill in the blank, whatever you're thing is, and I'm just here to say that I've never felt credible enough. I haven't gotten to that line because then you always see someone else who's doing it better or bigger. So it's really just about getting started, going ugly early. Don't worry about perfection. I'm not the best at what I do. I'm not a perfectionist, and I think that helps me. It's really about serving people. So when people tell me, well, Graham, I don't feel like I'm an expert in my field or whatever, I say, I don't like that language. I say, none of us are experts, but we all can help somebody in an area that we know something about. So think about the ways you've helped people in the past. I started a YouTube channel around recording music because as a musician, I got interested in the tech and recording my own music, and I started to help people do that. So I was like, well, I can teach people how to do what I've done. Not everybody, but beginners. I can teach beginners. And so think about the people that you could help. It's usually the person you once were. And so start to help those people. And if you can help people, you can build a business, because ultimately that's all we're doing in business is helping people.
I like that. I want to circle back because I got a little bit started popcorning and got off track about Rebel. Deep dive into that book with me a little bit about the takeaway. I know that, how to get paid for what you know is a blueprint. How would you describe Rebel to future readers out there?
Yeah, Rebel is like a coaching session in a book. It's really like identity work. Like, who are you? So Dan Miller, one of the great authors, and we lost him recently. He wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love. Great book. He says the two most important questions you need to figure out in life are who are you and why are you here? So it's really about purpose. And I think a lot of people are confused about their purpose, and they think their job is their purpose or their family is their purpose. And those are parts of it. But really, it starts with who you are. Once you know who you are, you can better know what to say yes to in life, what opportunities to pursue. And so Rebel is really about a 5-step process. It's the acronym Rebel. It spells out a framework of figuring out who the heck you are. So at the very end of the book, you kind of have a lot of clarity. There's a whole framework even about how you make decisions in life and what your purpose or purposes, that's kind of a clue there, really is. And so I think Rebel is all about finding yourself. It's really about, hey, maybe you've been parenting for a while, or you've been in your career for a while, or maybe you're a 22-year-old. Like anywhere in between, you've probably lost yourself at some point. And we all have. And so it's really getting back to know who you are. And once you better know who you are, then you can ultimately show up in the way I think you were wired and designed. And then you can really make the biggest impact in your family, in your community, and in your workplace.
Do you think, this is the time of year. We're at the start of 2025. I feel this paradigm shift of people wanting to do more, wanting to tap into their fullest potential. Now is the time to grab these books and start reinventing yourself. Even if it doesn't take you out of your current career, you can at least be better at it. It's not about a complete change of life.
Correct. It's an identity shift. It's it's really not even a shift. It's getting back to who you actually have been all along. So one of the things I told a counselor years ago was, I don't think I've let the real Graham come out and play yet. That was the way it popped in my head. And I've latched onto that because I think all of us have a real version of ourselves that's in there. And when we were young, like a kid, it was the most natural thing. And there was rough edges. That's what good parenting and good mentorship can wear off some of the rough edges. But I think it's gone far beyond that a lot of times, where we have to almost cut off parts of who we are because maybe a significant other or a loved one or a boss or culture sort of said that's not good or right. And so we do this. We cut off parts of ourselves. So really it's a rediscovery. So you don't have to become something you're not. And to your point, you don't have to blow up your whole life. In fact, I don't recommend you blow up your whole life, because in a way that could be selfish too. It's really about doing the honoring work to yourself and to others of finding out, hey, who's the real Graham? Who's the real Gail? And you might have some parts of it, but doing some of the deep work, once you know that, then I feel like you can have more joy and more satisfaction in your family, in your workplace. Maybe there you discover, hey, I want to start something new. For me, I had to lose a job. I had to lose 2 jobs to actually have the guts to start something new. But maybe I do my work with more purpose and clarity, because now I know, what, I've been doing this role, but really my identity is over here. And you can ask your people, hey, can I do this or show up more in this way or add value in this way? And when your uniqueness comes out, I think people notice it. I think it's attractive. You stand out. If you look like everybody else, no one's going to notice you and give you a raise or a promotion. So really pressing into your uniqueness, not everyone's going to like it, but the right people will, and you'll have more impact and more success that way.
Yeah. And I do believe that, you're so right. And that we start to follow what expectations that we think were placed on us. Like I went to visit now she turned 25 when we were visiting her in Boston, my daughter. And she's like, so enthusiastic about her new job, but she's not getting paid, what she thinks that is expected. She's like, I know I'm not getting paid a lot. I'm like, you're getting paid with some of the most incredible experience. And, when I see her and the way she's thriving, and I started to adjust as a parent because I think I had, the hammer dropped on me. Maybe that was my style of parenting. But as I watch my daughters grow up and flourish, you do have to allow your children to be their most authentic self and to find their way in life. And Rebel could be the book that they could read to understand I am finding myself and my purpose, and all the things that I'm gaining early on in life and in the job and the workforce will help me propel throughout my life.
100%. In the book, I talk about something called the two-way mirror of meaning. And this is my way of how I understand the world, which is like a two-way mirror. One side, from one perspective, it's see-through, and the other side, it looks like a mirror. It's reflective. And this is the way I view like the world is. When I try to look in the mirror at myself to better understand myself, I'm always on, and you're always on the see-through side. So we don't actually see ourselves very clearly. We see other people. And so we compare. We say, I should be like him. I should be like her. And then it's sort of the two-way part is really insidious. And that when I ask for help or counsel, the people that are looking back at me are on the reflective side. So they don't actually even see me. They see themselves. So when I ask them for advice, hey, I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z. What do you think? They see themselves and say, well, this is what I did. This is what I would do. And they don't mean it, but it happens naturally. And that just reinforces because I see you and you see you, so I become more like you. So I bring that up because like children coming to their parents, or if you have a mentor, a lot of times it can be hard if you don't know who you are when you seek counsel from those that you really respect. They might love you and want to give you counsel, but they don't know who you are fully either. They might know you better than some, but they don't know you as well as you should know yourself. So you almost need to do some of this inner work to better understand yourself before you ask for like important counsel from mentors, and even from parents. Like my kids, I need them to better understand themselves. So when they ask me for advice, that's very personal and specific as opposed to global things that are always true for all people. I need to make sure I'm not boxing them into the way Graham is and what Graham really wants, because they're not me. They're going to have parts of me, but they're going to have their own journey, their own path. And so they need to be clear, because I easily steer them into more of a Graham type decision. Because like both my wife and I are entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurship is what set us free in a lot of ways. And so I'm cognizant of not trying to make them have to be entrepreneurs, which is the opposite of like my parents are like, get a good job with benefits. And I'm like, don't get a good job, be an entrepreneur. I don't want to do that either, because maybe they don't want that pressure. Or that's not what lights them up. But I try to show them like, hey, you can do anything. I want to find out what your thing is and support you in that. And if you want to talk entrepreneurship, well, let's do it all day long.
How do you start to find who you really are? I mean, I know you outline it in Rebel, but can you give us a highlight of what it takes to start finding our true self?
Yeah, you start with desire. And so the R in Rebel, which is the first step in the 5-step framework, is to resolve to dream again. So it's like a stake in the ground of like, I'm going to get back to dreaming. And dreaming is like either exciting for you or it's like, you get cynical about dreaming. It really depends on your perspective if you've had a dream die. I mean, I had my biggest dream to be the rock star died. And so I got really cynical about dreaming. I said, I'm never going to dream again. My natural confidence and like optimism that anything was possible got crushed. So that's why there was like 4 or 5 years of me saying, forget it, I'm just going to put my head down and be like everybody else. So maybe that's your experience too. But you have to get back to dreaming, because dreams are data points. Desires are data points to the way we're wired. So I have people in the book go through a 50 dreams exercise, which is really, really hard.
Hard, yeah.
You think like, 50 dreams. I got to 10, and it took me a week to finish the 50 the first time I did this. But it's really less about a bucket list of things I'm going to go do in my life, although you certainly can and should pursue a lot of those dreams. It's more, though, of better understanding what is meaningful to me. Big dreams, like I want to live in this country one day, or small dreams, like I really want to go to this restaurant, or I really want to learn Spanish, or I really want to have this type of vacation with my family. We've never done this before. It would be really, really fun. Or I really want to take pickleball lessons. Like whatever it is, like it tells you something about yourself. And I've had so many people go through this exercise. I had a gentleman went through it, big, tough, tattooed guy. And he came up to me and said, hey, I went through this exercise and I got to the very end. And one of the last dreams I wrote down was that I want a basketball hoop. Like when I was a kid, I always wanted a basketball hoop on my, my driveway. And I never had one. And I can go play basketball at the gym. But like it came up like, I just want a basketball hoop in my driveway. And he said, I actually started to cry when I wrote that down because it was less about the basketball hoop and more about like, I don't let myself pursue the things that are fun to me. I do the things that are productive or the things that are responsible or, I've got kids and a business and he just felt like a child again. And it just brought him back to a little bit of who he was. And so we have to start there because there's a lot of layers of life and other people's opinions covering up desire. And desire is not the end goal. It's not the complete vision for your life, but it's the starting point.
Yeah. And you make me think like when I was in the thick of it with 4 kids, this demanding career, I was like the guy looking for the basketball hoop. And part of being a rebel is learning that you can work and achieve what you desire and dream about. And you can also have that balance in life because I do look at you, with your beautiful family. I run into you from time to time at Radiant at church on Sundays. And I see you up on the stage singing. You still are a rock star, with the Radiant Collective. And so it's kind of cool to see that you're this entrepreneur, you're doing all these exciting things, you're helping all of these people, but you have a life balance that really is very special.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I feel like that's intentional because I like a lot of things, right? So I have a lot of values. So I value family. Like I want to be a husband, like to the end. I want, the stats aren't great for marriage. And so I want to be a rebel in my marriage, which is rebellious to stay married. I want to be married for 60, 70 years. I want to become a better husband towards the latter half than I was at the beginning. I want to raise these girls well. I mean, I'm a girl dad. I love being a girl dad. I have 2 incredible daughters. I want to give them a great example of what a man should be. And it's a lot of pressure because I'm trying to figure that out still at 41. But I want to give them an example for what a man should be and how they should be treated. And then also how to dream and how to pursue life with passion and how to follow God and how to love people well. So that's meaningful for me. So if it's meaningful, I got to make time for it. Like health is meaningful to you. What you talk about on the show, so you make time for health. Talking about it and saying, yeah, I value health is one thing, but show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities, right? So my calendar is primarily time with my family. I spend a lot of time with my business compared to other things, but I even try to crack that down and try to keep it between 10 and 20 hours a week because I really want flexibility to take my kids to school and pick them up from school and have Fridays off with Shay and the weekends with the fam. And so I don't think you have to choose either or. I know people are kind of anti-work-life balance. I guess that term is not popular anymore. I think that's just because people haven't discovered work-life balance.
Right.
So if you can't figure it out, you say it's a crack. It's a crock. But it really is possible. But it does take intentionality, and you can't be intentional until you know what you value. So I don't think you have to toss out the family for your career, and I don't think you should toss out your career for your family. I think you should just get more creative and ask bigger questions like, how can I, instead of it's not possible, how could I have a thriving family life, a thriving career, health, personal friendships? Like, it's not easy, but we're creative people. We do all kinds of hard things all the time. Why not put some of that brain power towards this intentional life? So in the book, we walk through the 6 core areas of life, and I show you how to think about being a rebel in all 6 of those areas. And you get to decide what that looks like. But it's because I value all those things, I'm trying to make time for all of them.
And people heard you say, hey, a 20-hour work week, whoa. But it's possible because the other thing that you guide and teach and coach people on regularly is that you don't have to be shackled to a desk 9 hours a day.
Right. I mean, entrepreneurship is one way to set you free because then you can own your time. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs and they work way more than 9 to 5 people. They work
Right.
60, 70, 80. So entrepreneurship isn't actually the solution because most people still struggle with not being efficient. So the 80-20 rule is the biggest thing I've lived by. Pareto's principle, it's called, right? That 80% of our results typically come from 20% of our efforts. And so I try to 80-20 the mess out of my life. So I look at my business and I say, well, I could be posting on social media all the time and I could be creating 10 times the amount of content I'm making. I could be doing more live calls to my community, but it's really not going to give me that much more growth in my business, maybe a smidge. So I'll cut out 80% of what everyone else is doing, maybe take a dip in income a little bit, but I get 4/5 of my time back. And then really the reality is if you find the 20% that drives your business or your career or your job and you just double down on that, well, you can get twice the results in less than half the time. And so that's really the principle. It's less about although automation is powerful and AI is helpful, it's really like, do you know what really moves the needle in the work you're doing? And most of us like to feel busy because it makes us feel important, or we feel like we need to look busy. So it takes a lot of guts to say, I'm going to eliminate 4/5 of what I was doing and get almost the same amount of results. And that's the only way I've been able to do this.
Well, I can promise you, nobody on their deathbed looks back in life and says, darn, I wish I had just worked a little bit harder. You know, they want those moments with their family, that quality time. Brody, do you have any questions for Graham?
I don't think we have enough time for all the questions I have, man. Jeez.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation. And again, if you want to get the books, they're awesome. I am almost through How to Get Paid for What You Know. And my next deep dive is Rebel. I've read just bits of it, but 2 great books that could set you up for a prosperous new year. Graham, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.